Well, here's a news flash for you.
What news?
Tell us a story.
Yes, tell us a story.
What is this? Good news, bad news?
I've got the story. I've got the story.
Gone all summer without a scrap of news.
Good news and bad news.
That's good news. If I'm gonna do this, I'll need my news team at my side.
News team, assemble!
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the very first episode of the Movie News Network, the official podcast of MovieNewsNet.com. I'm your host, David Wall, and joining me today are a few of the other writers for the website. First up, we have from the UK, Alex Newman. How you doing, Alex?
Yeah, good, thanks. Happy to be on. Excited to do this.
Excited to have you on as well. And also joining us from across the pond in Spain, we have Miguel Fernandez. How are you, Miguel?
Hello, David. Very excited to be here.
All right. And so on today's show, we will be going through the biggest film news of the past couple weeks, along with our takes on each story. After that, we'll wrap up with a bit of what we've been watching, and we'll bring up a story we just can't stop thinking about. So without further ado, let's get into the news. Our first story is about Universal, the controversy around Universal. So, after the wild success of Trolls World Tour on video on demand, Universal controversially announced that even after all the theater chains reopen, they'll be doing simultaneous online releases for all of their films. This breaks agreements with companies like AMC and Regal that require a window before online releases, and now Universal will have to face the consequences. In dramatic fashion, both theater chains have announced that they will no longer play Universal films at their venues. However, AMC has made it clear that the table is open for closed-door discussions. So, Miguel, you wrote this story for the site.
Yes.
What do you think? Is this just a negotiating tactic, or is this for real? Are AMC not ever going to play another Universal movie?
It's a bit tricky. I do think they're, at least at this point, they're for real. I mean, there's a very simple agreement. This is discussed more in length in the article in the MovieNewsNet.com. But there's a very simple agreement. The studios send theaters their movies, and the theaters have to show them. So if either part breaks, it doesn't work. AMC declared that basically declared war on Universal because the Universal decided to put Trolls World Tour on VOD. So, AMC has now made clear, and so has Regal, that they won't play their movies. So, I want to check out what movies are they referring to. So, in July, they have the next Purge movie that is coming out supposedly in the first week of July. So, allegedly, they won't be playing that. They won't be playing Candyman either, and that's for September. And then in October, they have a couple of releases, among which it's Halloween Kills. So those are pretty big movies, and I think they are for real, at least in the negotiating part of the statement. And I do think they want to keep that agreement like very clear, at least for Universal and also for the rest of the studios, that they are not here to play with the studio. So, Alex, take it away.
I think both sides are playing with fire here. I think it's really they're in a dicey situation. Good on AMC and Regal for sticking up to themselves. I think. I honestly would have expected. I think Universal really didn't want a fight. I think they kind of wanted to slip this in under the radar and have everyone just be like, oh. Okay, and then when all this pandemic has calmed down, that it all goes back to not normal, but what Universal wants the new normal to be. But I think that I think both sides stand to lose. Obviously, AMC and Regal not getting the money from playing such big films, but if Universal decide they can't resolve anything and decide to have barely any theatrical releases anymore. Yes, it worked while everyone's stuck inside for Trolls World Tour, but it next year relegates the new Jurassic World down to being a Netflix original, essentially. Yeah. It's not a big... all their films become straight to DVD. rather than being actual cinematic releases. So it might have made them a lot of money this time, but I don't know if that will last. I don't know if that's a good long-term strategy to not play anything in theaters.
Yeah, I think that they're putting all their eggs in this Trolls World Tour basket, but I think that might be more of a one-time situation that it was so successful, because right now everyone is at home pretty much across the world. As we move forward, people will want to go back to the movie theaters. So I think that they're just kind of shooting themselves in the foot a little bit here by wanting to do both simultaneous, video on demand and in theaters. That I think is a good idea, but I think the fact that it breaks their agreement is the reason that AMC and Regal are so upset.
Yeah,
but
I'm not 100% sure that it's a good idea, because once it becomes available on VOD, like, why would you go to the theater? And if you go to the theater, that's where the studio makes the most money. Like, not on, like, it's, you have to drop $20 to watch the movie, like, in 48 hours. And I don't know if that just doesn't work in my mind when you can leave your house.
Now, was that the $20 you paid for Trolls World Tour? Was that a rental or did you buy it?
I think that's rental, right?
It was a rental for 48 hours. It was see, that's pricey, but it might be worth it for the kids. You're stuck indoors, play it on repeat. But I feel like there's a lot to be said, especially with Universal being, such a big sort of picture house, big production company, that a lot of their films work because you see them in the theater. Jurassic World,
especially Jurassic.
Yeah, yes. Jurassic World
and
is epic in the theater. Exactly, Fast and Furious is epic in the theater. If you let people watch that at home, they're not paying attention. They don't care as much. Yeah, it was all right. It was a nice action flick. Didn't really pay attention. Are they then going to watch the sequel? Whereas if they've paid to go to the cinema, they've invested. It looks amazing. They care about the franchise.
I think people definitely overestimate how good their home systems are, because when you're in the theater, you can't leave. You don't go and do the dishes while you're watching them film. So, and the sound, people underestimate sound in the theater. Like, it really wraps you up in the movie. And I feel like, Trolls World Tour worked because everyone was at home and it was a kids movie and it worked for that. But I feel like with Jurassic, it would have worked during the pandemic, but after this is over, I don't think that they can continue to just be doing video on demand. I don't think it's going to be quite as successful for them.
I wanted to bring up the Universal schedule because I think it's important, because people are talking about Fast and Furious 9, Jurassic World, and those are next year. I do think that by next year we will have this sorted out either way.
Oh, yeah,
definitely.
I mean, Halloween Kills, it's coming out mid-October, and I don't know what will happen with that. And the previous installment in the Halloween franchise, in the US, it made $255. But worldwide, I would have to check that out.
But they'd be competing against themselves, really. It's just kind of... and the other thing is, though, is AMC and Regal, like you said, it's good that they're fighting for themselves, but they are hanging on by a thread as it is. And so I feel like they should have come out with statements that were a little bit more negotiable, but
diplomatic.
A little bit more diplomatic. But I feel like maybe playing hardball is they know that this is a mutual beneficial relationship, and if either one of them drops out like this, then it would kill them both. So I feel like the theater chains and the studios have to continue this agreement if they want to both make money here.
Definitely. I know the three of us are probably a very biased sample, considering we are on a podcast called Movie News Network, so we all like the cinema, we like the theater. Obviously we like streaming things at home, but if we're going to watch something, we're going to watch it in the cinema if we can. So there probably is a percentage of people who have a completely different opinion, who are happy, who would say, nah, my dad, for example, would easily be like, nah, why do I have to go out? I can watch it at home. It's way better.
Families, for example, with 3 kids, they would want movies on VOD because they only have to pay once. If you bring your 3 kids and the 2 parents to the theater, you have to pay 5 times more.
Yeah, but my counter argument to what I've said and what you just said, Miguel, would be that's fine to say the same thing about families and people like my dad. They also don't care about spoilers. My dad doesn't care if he has to wait 6 months to see it. I go to the movies because I don't want anything to be ruined. I don't want to know if it's good or bad or what happens until I've seen it and made up my mind.
Absolutely.
Families don't care about that. People that don't care about the cinema don't care about that. They'll watch it whenever they get around to watching it. So I feel like it's still, it doesn't make any difference whether it goes into the cinema and then goes on to video on demand, because you're still capturing both audiences. Releasing it earlier on video on demand doesn't, I wouldn't say captures anyone that you wouldn't get if you released it on both.
That's true. That's true. It's just kind of jumping the gun for those same audiences that would be willing to wait.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so let's move on to our next story. The Matrix 4 is bringing back their stunt coordinators, Chad Stahelski and David Leitch. So the next movie in the Matrix series is bringing on these old stunt coordinators who previously did stunt work for the franchise. But these guys have gone on to become very successful in their own right. Stahelski, who was Keanu Reeves' stunt double in the original Matrix movies, went on to collaborate with Keanu Reeves again in all of the John Wick films because he's directed those movies. Leitch has become a director in his own right as well. He made movies like Atomic Blonde, Deadpool 2, Hobbs and Shaw. So these guys are big time nowadays, but they'll be coming back to do stunt coordination for the new Matrix film, which is kind of a big surprise. And what's even cooler is they've already completed an action sequence before the production ceased due to the pandemic. So, Alex, what do you think of this? Are you a fan of the Matrix movies?
I'm going to admit something uncool now. As a film fan, in the first episode, I'm going to admit this. I have seen the first Matrix a few times. I've never seen the sequels. That's okay. I never jumped in. It's not something I grew up with, or I was sort of in that weird middle age where I wasn't young enough to grow up with them, but wasn't old enough to go see them myself. So I saw the first one, but then have never found anyone to be like, we have to watch all three, which I've heard is because the second and third one maybe aren't as strong as the first one. But I think it's a really big deal considering how successful both of their careers have been, and the fact that they're willing to come back and essentially, I don't know, maybe take a pay cut, maybe take a job cut, going down from being director of the John Wick movies to becoming a stunt coordinator again. The fact that they're willing to do that for something as special as The Matrix is big news.
Absolutely. What do you think, Miguel? Are you into the Matrix movies?
Okay, I've watched them, but I've only watched them. I watched the original Matrix a couple of times, maybe 3, but the sequels only once, each one. So I gotta say, I'm not really looking forward to this movie, but that's. I don't really care, honestly. The trailers might be great, and I will probably go watch it, but I'm not really looking forward to it. However, these are nothing but exciting news. I mean, if you're gonna have a piece of news out there about the new movie, like having the stunt coordinators that work so well with Keanu, is nothing but good news. So yeah, thumbs up for me.
Absolutely. I was really into the first Matrix, and I was kind of like at the right age. I was like maybe 12 or 11 when the second one and third one came out. So I was like the perfect age to be like, these movies kick ass. But then as I grew up, I'm like, those movies were not great. But
I can see you saying that for the second one. The second one is really action heavy.
Oh my God. The second one, there is some really cool action sequences. There's like a really amazing one on like set on a freeway, and they're kind of jumping from car to car, and the stunts are really cool. But I will say that the first one was especially special. It was very cool with the stunts because most of it was real. Like the second and third one, there was a lot of CG. There's a couple scenes where like there's just giant swarms of CG bodies like attacking Keanu Reeves, and it's just kind of lost what was special, I think, in the second and third movies. So I'm excited for them to be bringing these two legendary stunt coordinators back, because they'll kind of bring something back to the franchise that I think was missing in the sequels.
And I think it's really interesting first on your first point, they are iconic. Like that spinning shot of Trinity was like mind blowing at the time. The fact that when she's in midair in the jump and they were able to track the camera around her, like that was just one of those. It's become iconic, that shot.
Absolutely.
And so I think one of the perks of bringing them back as well is that John Wick was such a smash hit, a surprise hit. No one thought it would do well, and it spawned 2 sequels and I think either 1 or 2 more on the way. They've sort of made it almost serial-like now. Like they sort of continue on. They're not even very sequel-like. They're literally almost like a continuity of events, and then the ending is almost like the end of an episode for the next one.
Right.
So with that, them directing and doing the stunts for John Wick and Deadpool 2 did really well, and one of the Fast and Furious movies. You know that they're not going to try and do the Matrix again. You're getting people that are still relevant. Not only will they bring some of that clout with them, some of the the stunt coordinators from John Wick did this, so it's cool.
Yeah,
they've proven within the last 2-3 years that both of them are still at the top of their game, and they're bringing that to the Matrix.
I'm not exactly sure how they will continue this story. It kind of seems a little after. Just the fact that there's a Matrix 4 is a little confusing, especially starring Keanu and all these characters, because no spoilers for you, Alex, but the end of the trilogy was a little final. So it it feels a little weird that they're doing number 4, but I also feel like if any franchise was able to kind of continue on, it could be the Matrix, because they can kind of get creative with whatever rules of their universe to kind of create a sequel, just out of thin air a little bit. You
can write it well. I'm sure someone will come up with a good idea.
Absolutely. It's another Matrix. All right. So moving on, LeBron James recently took to Twitter to reveal the new logo and title for the upcoming sequel to Space Jam. His post featured a video of him modeling a hat with the words Space Jam, a new legacy. The logo itself is kind of a redesign. It calls back to the classic 1996 logo, but it's kind of got more of a modern look, more modern font to it. So, Miguel, what did you think of this new Space Jam logo, and were you a fan of the original Space Jam movie?
Okay, I didn't grow up on the original Space Jam, and I watched it, and I liked it, but I'm not the biggest fan. So I'm probably the wrong person to ask here, because I don't really follow basketball, and I like the movie, but not that much, actually.
I mean, were you a Looney Tunes? Are you a Looney Tunes person? Did you watch those as a kid?
I know I watched them, but I don't have really special memories from them or something. I know I watched them.
Yeah. What do you think of the title, A New Legacy?
It's a title. I don't know. It's like throwing up 3 random words that could, these words means sequel. So they mean sequel, and that's it. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a bit like just a board of directors kind of had a bunch of words on the wall and just throwing darts at them, trying to figure out what this title for this new movie would be. It doesn't really mean anything.
Get what the movie is about or anything.
What do you think, Alex?
I am very excited. I love Space Jam. I love Looney Tunes even more. I've loved them since I was a kid, and I'm sad that they don't get more movies, because I loved Back in Action as well. I love a good bit of live action animated mix. I feel like that's something we don't do a lot now, and it was very, very 80s, 90s to do that. So I'm excited to see it done again. I think the title it's really just nice to know that it exists, because I think it's been one of those projects that's been in the go for like a decade. Yes. Right. Sort of everyone's gone like, oh, Space Jam, you could just use a new basketball and do a sequel, and everyone sort of said that constantly for 10 plus years now. So it's nice to get such confirmation that it's still happening. So I get that's all this is. A New Legacy is an alright title, I guess. I think, as Miguel said, you could call it Space Jam 2, but I think as the Marvel Cinematic Universe has learned, no one wants to use 2 as much anymore. People don't want to use that term that you have to see the first one to see the second one. It's sort of, I think that's fading away, because people want to be able to go, no, who cares if you haven't watched Space Jam in 20 years? come and see
Sure.
this one.
Yeah.
I think the one thing I really hope they do change, which I think hindsight's 2020 with Space Jam, people love it, but I rewatched it a couple of years ago and remember thinking, oh my god, there's so much Michael Jordan. There's so much Korea. There's so much basketball, and actually a little bit of Looney Tunes. It's surprising there's a lot less of Bugs and Taz and Daffy than you'd think.
Right.
So I'm hoping that they kind of correct that in this one and we get a good mix of both.
Agreed. I am excited because I know there's a lot of, I'm not a huge basketball person, but I know that there's a lot of contention about LeBron James isn't as good as Michael Jordan, so you can't even put him in the same category. People always say that. But I do think that LeBron James is a better actor than Michael Jordan. He has been in a couple things. What was he in? I think he was in Trainwreck, that movie with Amy Schumer. And he's pretty funny in that movie. And so I'm actually a bit excited about him to be in this movie. And like you said, I would like some more Looney Tunes. I would like it to be loonier and crazier. That's why I feel like the title A New Legacy is just kind of like, this is Looney Tunes. This could be the craziest, wackiest title you could think of, and it's just A New Legacy. So
yeah, exactly.
So like you were saying, Alex, I love that mix of live action and like classic traditional animated movies, especially Who Framed Roger Rabbit. That is like one of my favorite movies of all time. So I'm actually excited to see kind of how they take that in the new one. I'm not exactly sure. Is it going to be, do we know, is it going to be traditional animated or is it going to be CG characters?
I don't know if we know that yet. I'd like to.
Me too. But I mean, I think in the past 10 years, they released a couple Looney Tunes shorts that were CG. So I think maybe they were testing for this Space Jam. So I wouldn't be surprised if it's CG.
Exactly.
Next story is about a couple of Disney live action reboots. We're all very familiar with how Disney has been rebooting every single one of their classic animated films. So first up, we have Robin Hood. The director of the movie Blindspotting, Carlos Lopez Estrada, will be directing the new adaptation of Robin Hood. And the screenwriter of the Disney Plus Lady and the Tramp adaptation, her name is Kari Granlund. She'll be writing the screenplay. And this movie will be a musical, and it'll be starring the anthropomorphic animals. Robin Hood is in the old one is he's a fox, and so this movie will be premiering on Disney Plus, just like Lady and the Tramp. So this one will kind of be getting that Lion King, Lady and the Tramp look, and then also we're going to be getting a live action remake of Hercules, the 1997 Disney movie. The really cool part of this one is that we'll be getting the Avengers directors, Joe and Anthony Russo, will be producing. A guy named Dave Callahan will be writing the script. He is a guy who did production rewrites for Ant-Man, and he's going to be doing Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. He's writing that screenplay. So we got some talent behind that one, which is really cool. So I'll go to Alex first. Alex, what do you think of this? Are you excited for these Disney remakes?
I am. But I'm cautiously optimistic. Like, I'm a massive Disney fan. I worked at Disney World for about 8 months on a program there, so I'm all about Disney. I'm behind it. I have such a conflicting relationship about these remakes because I want to see them and I always want them to be good. I'm so excited for the Hercules one. Hercules was the first film I ever saw in the cinema. I have a tattoo of the animated Hercules film. Yeah, I'm a massive fan. Tattoo on my arm of it. But it's just one of those things. When they started doing these remakes, I remember Cinderella was one of the sort of first big ones with Kenneth Branagh directing.
Right.
And I was like, this is nice. It was a good telling of Cinderella came out in 1950, I believe. I checked
something like that. Yeah.
So we're talking 60 years later they did it. And you go, that's fine. And then we sort of got on, and they were doing sort of, for the first couple of years, they were doing one per year. And I'm like, that's fine. Don't mind that. If you're going to do one per year and it's a little, same to the original, that's fine. I don't mind. Last year, they released 4.
Wow.
And that's...
What were they?
We got Dumbo, Aladdin, Lion King, and then Disney Plus original Lady and the Tramp.
My
All in
And the
God.
Maleficent
2019.
sequel.
And the Maleficent sequel. If
Oh,
you count,
wow.
I probably wouldn't count the Maleficent sequel because it's Maleficent was like an adaptation of Sleeping
Oh,
Beauty.
okay,
Yeah, it's like
But
a...
it's a different point of view, but it still stands that they're using some of their original animated films.
Yes.
So that was when I was like, if you're going to release one per year and lean on the nostalgia, that's fine. If you're going to make 4 per year, you have to start getting creative.
Yeah.
And I just feel like, I think Mulan was going to be a big test for that, and hopefully still will be when we finally see it. Taking out the music, taking out Mushu and Shang. So that one I'm really interested to see. And I'm
making
hoping,
it like a martial arts film.
yeah, martial arts and from the sound of it, very sort of culturally appropriate
Right.
to China. I'm hoping then that kind of translates over to Hercules being quite different. And obviously I love the Hercules music, so I'd love them to include it. But if they don't, I'm interested to see what they do. Robin Hood, I haven't seen the animated Robin Hood in a long, long time. It's not dear to my heart. So obviously you know more about it, David, but I feel like since it's being made for Disney Plus, I feel like it could be a little bit more close to the source because they're not looking to rock the boat on Disney Plus.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Robin Hood, for me, I really loved that movie as a kid. I watched it over and over. Hercules, actually, I only saw once or twice as a kid. And but my wife is really into Hercules. She's kind of like you. And so I've learned to really love that movie.
Yeah.
Robin Hood, I feel like I'm not sure really what they can do with it because they're going to be doing it an adaptation of their version. So he's going to be a fox. There's going to be all these animal characters. But I will say that the director, Carlos Lopez Estrada, he did Blind Spotting. I don't know if you've seen this film, but it's really good. It's very relevant to today, which is cool. So I feel like maybe he'll kind of bring something that is very culturally relevant to this movie. And it's also quite musical. Like there's in a hip hop way. So I don't know if they're going to bring music to this movie that is like not the original music, but like hip hop versions of the original music. I don't know if they're doing that. I kind of might be interested in that. I don't really know.
They're the risks I think they need to take, though.
Yeah, I think
that's my issue. Is that they don't take enough risks.
Right.
But I found the best parts of Aladdin and Lion King were the bits that went off script. The best parts were Timon and Pumbaa doing their free stuff that wasn't in the original, and Zazu in Lion King, and in Aladdin, some of the banter with Will Smith as the genie and Aladdin were the best parts.
Yeah,
the bit where he's like trying to call.
I really like the Aladdin remake. I really I had no expectations whatsoever because they had released a couple of trailers which were really bad, and also some images that were like. They looked like Halloween costumes. Like they did not look like a Hollywood production. So when they put that to the screen, I actually really liked the movie. I didn't really like Dumbo or The Lion King. So there's that. But
Miguel, we didn't really get your opinion. So what do you think of these?
I wanted to ask you a couple of questions. Have you seen Lady and the Tramp?
I saw that one. Yeah.
Not yet.
Okay.
No.
I haven't seen it either. So, I can't really comment on the screenwriter. How was it?
It's fine. It definitely deserved, in my opinion, to be on Disney Plus. It was not. It was not like exciting. Really, it was just kind of bland. It felt like. It was fun enough, but it wasn't really like. There was nothing really that fresh or original about it. So.
You guys know if Lady and the Tramp was motion capture or was it all CG?
Actually, so in Lady and the Tramp, it was a little different. All the animals were real until they were talking. So I think.
Yes.
I think most of the time they were real animals, and then when they were singing and talking, they would put CG faces on them.
Okay, because I really can't wrap my head around Robin Hood. Like, how are they gonna do that? Because like motion capture an entire movie looks really strange, and full CG even more. So
hopefully we don't get a cat situation.
Yes, I don't know.
Yeah, I definitely feel like it's going to look weird because not only is it going to have that look of Lion King, I would assume, where they're, full realistic looking animals, but they're going to be standing on two legs and wearing clothes.
Yes,
So
that's like the one idea that they can't really put to live action like properly, right? Like I could have seen Lion King after Jungle Book being good,
yeah.
but Robin Hood, I don't know. So there's that.
But hopefully that pushes them to be more creative. And again,
Hopefully.
like you said about Lady and the Tramp, it was a little bit ho-hum, but that's good if it's going on Disney+.
Sure.
Again, it's like we said earlier with that video on demand.
Okay, yes.
If you put things on video on demand, we don't expect as much. It's when we're releasing them in the theater and you're like, okay, I'm paying money to specifically see this movie.
Right. What do you think about Hercules, Miguel?
Okay, so about the Russo brothers producing. I haven't seen Extraction yet, but I've heard it's not like it's it is what it is. It is what it looks from the trailers and what it looks like from the trailers and whatever. But I saw the reaction to 21 Bridges, which was the previous movie that they produced, and that wasn't so good. So I don't know if Russo brothers producing something, it's like getting me excited, like something beyond Marvel.
Yeah.
So
they're not directing; they're just producing. So
yes.
Who knows how big of a stamp they'll put on that?
I think the original article actually said that because I wrote that article. The original one, the source material said they're producing through their company, blah 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 blah.
Yes,
so
exactly.
It doesn't even say those two will be on set, just their company. It makes no indication of quality. The writer is promising though. He's done some good stuff, and he is obviously in demand considering he's doing a Spider-Verse sequel, Wonder Woman 1984, which we'll see soon enough. And has Shang-Chi coming out. So,
all right, well, we'll have to wait and see. So the next story that we have is about the Academy of Arts and Sciences has changed a couple things about its rules for the Oscars. So the first big difference, and this is because of the pandemic, eligibility for movies that are opening on streaming services and VOD are allowed. So any movie that comes out this year that originally was going to be planned for a theatrical release but is going to be put on VOD will be allowed to be eligible for the Oscars. This is temporary. This is supposed to go back to normal for the following year's ceremony. Another difference in next year's ceremony will be a combination of two categories: sound editing and sound mixing. These are two very different things. Sound editing is kind of creating all of the sound and finding sound effects, and creating sound effects and putting them into the edit of the film and kind of building it that way. Sound mixing is a different thing. That is kind of changing the levels of things, adding effects to those effects, and just kind of overall making it feel like one thing as opposed to a bunch of disparate sounds. So those two categories are being put into one group, so that's a notable difference. And so the ceremony itself will still take place on February 28th, 2021 on ABC. So let's go to you, Miguel. What do you think about these changes?
I think the sound thing, I don't like it, honestly. Those are very different categories. So once again, it's the Academy not recognizing sound design people.
Yeah, I think, in my opinion, that the sound, I think the Academy themselves don't really know the difference.
Yeah.
Because when they vote on these things, I always think they get it wrong. I am always like that. They don't know the difference between editing and mixing, and so maybe in some way it's a good thing because these people don't know the difference anyway, and so the wrong awards or the awards are going to the wrong people. What do you think, Alex, about these rule changes?
I think the first one, the eligibility for streaming on video on demand, I think it's a necessary, maybe not necessary evil, but it's a necessary move this year by the Academy. I know a lot of people think they sort of not as relevant as they used to be. The Oscars maybe aren't as representative or as needed as they maybe were 20 years ago. So I think this is a move for them to continue to be relevant. I'm not necessarily agreeing with that. I'm actually a fan of the Oscars. I know there's a lot of issues with them, but I like it's fun, I suppose, to sort of see who wins and who gets nominated. But I think it's a necessary change just to kind of, in the wake of the pandemic, to have this. I think it is a good idea to go back to normality in 2022. As we discussed before with the whole AMC Universal thing, we do want to support movie theaters, and I think them saying they have to at least have a 7-day run is a good way to do that. The sound one is a tough one, and again, I think you might be right that people listening to it don't know the difference. They're not going to be able to tell the difference between, this is good mixing but not good editing, and this is good editing but not good mixing. So the idea is just, I suppose, for people to vote for the final sound, which one has good sound design. I'm sure a lot of people in the industry itself are probably very upset, considering both distinct departments put a lot of effort into their work, and now they're sort of being lumped into the same one.
Right. All right. So some other aspects of the film industry that have been affected during the pandemic are a story that we've been hearing over and over and over from all the big movie studios, and that is the constant changing of release dates for all of their films. So we're going to be covering the most recent delays and disruption in the film business in our news sub-segment, The Delay After Tomorrow. So I'm just going to roll through these because there are a lot of changes that happened. Mission Impossible 7 and 8 have been pushed from July 2021 and August 2022 to November 2021 and November 2022. So just a couple months there. John Wick 4 was pushed away from May 2021, where it would have been competing with Matrix 4, another Keanu Reeves film, which is interesting. So that was pushed off a year. Hitman's Bodyguard sequel was pushed from August 2020 to August 2021. Batman was pushed to October 2021, which was originally June. Spider-Man 3 was pushed to November 2021, which was originally set for July. Doctor Strange 2 has been pushed to March 2022. It was originally May 2021 and then November 2021, so that one got pushed twice. Thor 4 was moved up a week to February 11th, 2022, which will be just in time for Valentine's Day, which is kind of fun, as it's supposed to be some sort of like a romantic comedy, I believe. And then last but not least, the Into the Spider-Verse sequel was pushed to October 2022. It was originally set for April. And then I'll also mention that sequel to Venom has been pushed from October of this year to June of 2021. And we also got a new title for that, and it'll be Venom Let There Be Carnage, which to me sounds like a sequel to There Will Be Blood, but it's not. So I will jump to you, Alex. What do you think about all these changes? Anything stick out to you? I know there's a lot to digest there.
I think it's interesting, the ones that, at the start of all this pandemic, there was, we'll move it back a few months, But it's interesting now we're getting to a point where they're like, nah, move it back a year. It's going back a whole year. We've got, the exact same date for the Hitman's Bodyguard sequel, but obviously that's not a crucial film. It's not part of the MCU or any of those wider universes. So they've obviously just gone back a year. That's it. Same date, but 1 year behind. So it's interesting as we get further into this to see some more drastic measures.
Go ahead, Miguel. What are your thoughts on all of these changes? Anything stick out to you?
Yes, the Doctor Strange too, which I think that might be because of Sam Raimi directing, that they wanna rework the movie, or at least the story. I don't think the screenplay was written yet, but that was getting ready to shoot in June or July or something like that. So maybe even May. So that sticks out. I don't know. The Batman was doomed to happen. That originally shut down for 2 weeks, and obviously it got longer than that.
Right.
And the Venom sequel, I was starting to doubt that was gonna come out in October this year, because we're in May already and we haven't seen anything. So
right,
that seems logic. The title, I like it actually. It's a bit wacky, like the movie itself. So
Right. I also forgot to mention that for the first time in 50 years, San Diego Comic-Con has been canceled for this year. I think we're going to be seeing quite a lot of those cancellations as the year goes on of big conventions being canceled. I'm really sad that probably Star Wars Celebration will be canceled, as I have my tickets and my plane tickets ready to go, and I'm going to be really bummed out when that happens. But yeah, I think we're just going to keep seeing a lot of this. It's just not worth it for these companies to kind of bring people together in this time.
Yeah. I think the reason... Sorry, just jumping into the Venom sequel there, I think it was a lot of fun, actually. It's definitely worth watching. It's a weird one. Let There Be Carnage is quite a wacky title. I think one of Venom's, or Carnage's big comic runs is called Maximum Carnage, but I think, which would have made sense, but I think they're probably skewing not wanting to be confused with Deadpool's catchphrase, Maximum Effort. I think that's personally a reason they didn't use the word maximum.
All right, we're going to go into our next segment, which is called Quickfire News. These are going to be just a couple of stories that we thought we wanted to mention, but we didn't want to go deep into too much discussion about them. So the first quickfire news is that the Lego movies are going to be moving to Universal. The rights were previously owned by Warner Brothers, but their contract expired when they failed to produce a new movie by a certain deadline. So it's unknown at this point if the new movies are going to be a continuation of the Lego movies that we already have, but we'll have to see if they put their own spin on it and how that turns out.
So Now You See Me 3 has been announced. Academy Award nominated writer Eric Warren Singer, who wrote American Hustle, has been brought in for this third installment, when returning producers Bobby Cohen and Alex Kurtzman. No director is announced just as yet. I enjoyed the first two, so it's exciting to see we've got confirmation of a third to make it a trilogy. So I think that's really all we've got. No talk yet of cast and who'll be there, but just that it's happening and we've got a writer.
Okay, so there have been several Bad Robot shows announced for HBO Max. And three new shows will be coming to a streaming platform of HBO Max, the upcoming HBO streaming service from J.J. Abrams' production company Bad Robot. So the first one will be Justice League Dark. That usually includes John Constantine, Swamp Thing, Madame Xanadu, Deadman, Dr. Mist, and some others. Overlook, which is reported as a horror thriller series exploring untold stories of the Overlook Hotel, the fateful haunted setting from Stephen King's The Shining, and last year's Doctor Sleep as well. And finally, Duster, which will be co-written by Abrams and set in the 70s Southwest USA. And it will explore the life of a getaway driver for a growing crime syndicate. So, quite honestly, I don't really care about either one. The Overlook sounds fun, I guess, but we might be stretching the Shining thread too much, especially with last year's Doctor Sleep, which I didn't see, but I've heard good things about. And Justice League Dark, it's interesting to know that it's going to HBO Max, because remember that originally it was a movie supposed to come out 2020. They announced a 2020 release date, and obviously that didn't happen. So it's curious to see that they will be dropping that on HBO Max.
Yeah, we'll have to see if any of those end up being good. My faith in JJ has been a little shaken.
Agreed.
Spy vs. Spy, the comic strip from Mad Magazine, is going to be getting a adaptation from Imagine Entertainment, which is Ron Howard and Brian Grazer's production company. They'll be producing. And it is going to be directed by Rawson Marshall Thurber, who is a director known for Dodgeball, which I really love Dodgeball. So we'll have to see. I'm interested. I don't know if I'm excited yet, but I'm interested.
On to Transformers news. We've got a couple of pieces there. A few days ago, it was announced that an animated prequel is in the works. from Paramount Pictures and Hasbro's E1. And that one that they've got Josh Cooley to direct. Sorry, he directed Toy Story 4 and wrote Inside Out. So they've got him on directing duties, with the script being done by Gabrielle Ferrari and Andrew Barra, who were credited as some of the writers. There were quite a few on Ant-Man and the Wasp. We're in early stages of development at the moment. Lorenzo de Bonaventura and Mark Vaharadian are expected to produce, as they have with previous Transformers installments. It's exciting. I think it depends. This is a very heavily dependent on your interest in the Transformers movies. You know, I know some people are going to groan at the news, other people are going to be excited. I think it's interesting that they're getting a sort of a big animated name in like Cooley, and that it's obviously going to be a theatrical release. So that's exciting. On the other news, they've announced their release date for the next live-action Transformers movie, being June 24th, 2022. Which, again, will either make you roll your eyes or be excited. They've got a few different projects for their live-action in development at the moment. One is a spin-off of Beast Wars, which has Autobots and Decepticons fighting it in prehistoric Earth setting, and the other one is reportedly a Bumblebee sequel, continuing with the Bumblebee movie. Which one this is going to be in 2022 hasn't been announced, so we'll find that out soon. It's nice to sort of have the franchise move away from Michael Bay's shadow, because I feel like at the start he was sort of lifted it up, and towards the last 2 or 3 he sort of dragged it down a little bit. So it's nice that we're sort of moving away from that, and I think we'll just see how it turns out. In a final bit of quickfire news, we've got Disney Plus has hit 50 million subscribers, something they weren't planning to do for a few more years. Kaley Cuoco from Big Bang Theory has joined Kevin Hart in The Man from Toronto. The Parks and Rec special, which aired on Thursday, is now available on the NBC website. I watched it, and it's very exciting. If you're a fan of the series, you will love it. It's it's an in-universe scripted event, not just an interview with the cast. They get all the big characters back, and a lot of fun cameos as well, so I'd recommend.
And they're all in self-isolation, right?
And they're all in self-isolation, yeah. So it's them doing like a friend tree where they all have to contact each other to make sure everyone's doing okay. So it's got a nice message to it. There's some really good in-universe explanations as to why married couples aren't together, that kind of thing.
Cool.
Yeah, so it's definitely worth watching. And in final unfortunate news, Irfan Khan has passed away. He was known for, in the West, for Life of Pi and Slumdog Millionaire.
So, the next segment we're going to get into is just a bit of what we've been watching. I recently watched this movie called Train to Busan on Netflix, which was a South Korean zombie film from a couple years ago. It was pretty fun. It was definitely kind of a little bit standard blockbuster, but there was some really clever, creative scenes in there, which made it pretty exciting. I had a really good time with it. That's on Netflix. You can check that out. And I'll just get into some of the TV I've been watching. I've been catching up on The Good Place, which is on Netflix right now, which is a kind of a sitcom. It's about the afterlife, and someone who was supposed to go to the bad place was sent to the good place, and hilarity ensues. It's starring Kristen Bell and Ted Danson. It's very funny. I honestly was not expecting it to be this good. It's pretty funny, and it's also got a really fun universe that they're playing around in.
How far in are you?
I am just finishing season 1. I really love it. I'm really liking it a lot. It is, and there's 3 seasons, right?
4. They just finished the first one. It finished about 2 months ago.
Okay,
it's quite.
And is that the end?
That's it. Yeah, it was quite nice. Michael Shaw got to finish it on his own terms, so I am very happy with all 4 seasons. Yeah.
Very cool. And he's the guy from Parks and Rec, right? So he helped
Parks and Rec, Brooklyn Nine-Nine, all of those shows.
Very cool. I really like Good Place. I'm really loving it right now. I also have been watching on ESPN. They've been releasing this documentary series called The Last Dance, which is about it's about the Chicago Bulls in the 1990s. Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, Dennis Rodman, and I am not a sports person. And I am actually shocked that I'm this into this TV show. It's very interesting and very well put together, and really good interviews with everybody, very candid. Also, I caught up on Better Call Saul, which had a really, really strong 5th season. And it's if you're a fan of Breaking Bad, I definitely recommend watching it. It's it really knows how to be a prequel to another show, but also be its own thing. And at this point in the show, it's really starting to bleed into Breaking Bad. And another show like that I've been watching is Clone Wars, and I'm sure you guys have been watching this as well. And that is doing an excellent job of bleeding into the events of Revenge of the Sith, being its own thing, but also giving us what we want in terms of recognizing things and connecting things. And I would say both of those things, Better Call Saul and Clone Wars, are great at doing that, and I recommend both of them. Better Call Saul I watched on AMC, and Clone Wars I watched on Disney Plus. We're recording this on Sunday, and tomorrow is May the 4th, and that's where they're gonna be releasing the final episode of Clone Wars. So I am beyond psyched to finish that show. Let's go to Miguel. What have you been watching?
So I've been watching mainly TV. I'm currently binging BoJack Horseman on Netflix, which is a very, very fun show. It's actually very funny, and also it has a lot of social commentary, so I 100% recommend it. I'm also watching, like, from time to time, Star Trek The Next Generation, which is actually the first Star Trek show I'm watching. I'm halfway through season 1, so I gotta say, I didn't really love the first 4 or 5 episodes, but these last, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 were very strong, so I'm digging it like it is right now. Rewatching The Office, which is always fun. I'm currently on season 2, and I gotta recommend also the podcast that the Office ladies that both Angela Kinsey and Jenna Fisher have. It's really fun. It's a rewatch of the show, and they're commenting on it, and it's actually really fun. And obviously, I've been watching Clone Wars, which I gotta say, these 3 last episodes have been my favorites of the entire show. I have mixed feelings on the first 8 of the last season. Like I liked them, but not really, and whatever. But these last 3 have been probably the best of the show. So let's see what the finale has left for us.
Very cool. I agree. The first few episodes of the season has been hit or miss. Kind of like the show at large.
Yeah.
Like I feel like it's consistent with the show.
Yeah.
The show has been a couple of fantastic episodes followed by like a kind of a very childish, like weird arc. So
Yes.
it's
Like,
kind of like the rest of the show. But
we had the first 2 seasons, which were like very childlike, and then we had the Mortis arc, which was like really strange for the show and also great. So yeah, I agree.
All right, Alex, you go ahead. What have you been watching?
I've been all over the place, really. I've been watching a weird mix of sort of high and lowbrow stuff. So on the higher end spectrum, I did. My girlfriend hadn't seen Saving Private Ryan, so we gave that a watch. Still holds up, as you would imagine. That one's on Amazon Rental. In terms of newer films, I finally got around to watching Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, which, again, if you're a Tarantino fan, I would recommend. It's definitely nowhere near my favorite Tarantino movie, but it's a really interesting thing to look at. It's almost one of those ones I'd actually recommend if you haven't seen it and you're going to. I would look up the events that it's based on, because it actually links into that period of time, and there's a lot of historical references that actually affect how you'd feel about the ending. So I would definitely recommend looking into Roman Polanski and Charles Manson before watching the film, just to make sure you're familiar with them. That's on Amazon Stars. On Netflix, I watched The Platform, which is a Spanish film, and it is really worth watching. I watched it with dubs, but they do have subs as well. It's a post-apocalyptic sort of dystopian film. It's very sort of experimental sci-fi. Essentially, these people are in prison, and the prison has a certain amount of levels. And each day, a massive table of restaurant-quality food is put out for level 1. And they can eat as much as they want or as little as they want. There's 2 of them in each cell. Then the table descends and goes to level 2 and 3 and 4. So if you're in the top 30, 40 levels, there's a good chance you can get food. But if you wake up and you change level every month, if you wake up and you're on level 150, you're not going to eat that month.
Oh my God.
And if you do 2 or 3 months of that, you might be thinking, maybe I'll eat my cellmate. And it sort of descends down that kind of way. It's a very interesting movie. It's not perfect by any means, but if you like sort of a bit of experimental sci-fi, it's definitely worth watching. On the other end of the spectrum, I watched Confessions of a Teenage Drama Queen for the first time with Lindsay Lohan, because my girlfriend loved it. It's good. It's not great, but it's very early 2000s, and if you're a fan of Lindsay, I'd watch it. Also watched the Purge trilogy, which was way less scary than I thought it would be. I was expecting to be scared the whole time, and they actually, while are still good, do descend into sort of being slightly horror action films, or thriller films, I should say, but still worth watching. And they are on, you can get them on Amazon Rental, that's where I got those. TV-wise, I've been doing a Scrubs rewatch, but let's be honest, I've been doing a Scrubs rewatch all the time since 2008, because I'm always watching some of that show. Shout out to another podcast as well. Donald Faison and Zach Braff, the 2 stars of the show, are currently doing a podcast themselves where they rewatch the show, which is interesting because I don't think they've seen them in almost 20 years, some of these episodes. And so it's interesting to hear some stories about how the show was created, how it came to be, and as the show goes on. And then I've also been watching Clone Wars, but I won't jump on that because you guys have all already commented. And then the other new show I've been watching is Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist, which you can buy on Apple or on Amazon, or if you want to watch it, it's on NBC. There are about 11 episodes into the first season. It's fun if you're a big fan of sort of light-hearted shows, bit of Glee, that kind of thing. It's about a girl that gets, I can't remember what happens in the first episode. She either knocks her head or she's in an MRI scan when an earthquake happens, and now she hears people express themselves through song. So she'll know why people, not all the time, but if someone's feeling a strong emotion and they're not saying it, she'll randomly hear this show tune of them singing, like, Lonely World, and she'll then have to help them with their problem. It's a bit weird, but it's fun NBC viewing, so if you want something a bit more lighthearted, it's the way to go.
Nice. Okay, so the last little segment that we're going to do is called What We're Hung Up On. So this little segment is, we all just kind of picked a news story or two that we're just still can't stop thinking about. So I'll just go first. Kevin Smith was working on this show for Disney Plus that is no longer in production or in pre-production or happening at all. And it's called Kingdom Keepers. It's based on a series of novels. And it's basically about people who work at the Disney parks, like Alex, who, when the park closes down, it comes to life. And so the show that Kevin Smith was working on, he described it as more of like the Avengers of Disney. And they were going to have basically every Disney character that you could think of would be in this show. And that, unfortunately, was the reason that it kind of fell apart, was because the people at Disney felt like it was too much going on at once and too much of their IPs being used at one time for one project, and they didn't want to use that, which I understand. So I'm just still thinking about that and dreaming about that.
Would have been really good. Would have been.
It
amazing.
sounds like it. Sounds like it.
I was, when I read, you wrote the article on that. When I read that, I was quite bummed because A, Kevin Smith's amazing, and B, I do understand where they're coming from. I guess they've got, ABC had Once Upon a Time, which again I think did a lot of that. But I suppose there was enough separation between what's happening at the parks and what's happening in the Disney world and what's happening on Once Upon a Time that, yes, you can see Elsa and Anna in that show as adults and doing different stuff, but you're not confusing any children. Whereas I think there probably would have been a heavy element of this being on Disney Plus, and what I'm going to talk about in a minute, that censorship of Disney Plus. They probably don't want kids getting confused with Anna and Elsa running around with Pinocchio and the Seven Dwarfs, and I think Disney can be quite protective, like they said, of their IP, and they don't want kids to be confused. And I know that, having worked there, that they're very hot on character integrity, people staying in character, they don't meet each other if they shouldn't meet each other, that kind of thing. And I feel like it might have gone in the face of a lot of that. Yeah.
Why don't we go to you, Alex, then? You were going to be talking about Disney as well.
Yeah, the one I'm sort of still hung up on is the Lizzie McGuire story that broke. It was probably about a month ago now, maybe 6 weeks. Hilary Duff sort of campaigned on Instagram to sort of say, we're having issues making it on Disney Plus. Can we do it on Hulu then? Them having a sequel series to Lizzie McGuire showing what it's like. I think it's going to be her in her 30s. Living in New York. And I was really excited. I'm a massive Lizzie McGuire fan. I watched it as a kid. I think I watched every episode. And I'm a big Hilary Duff fan. I like her in Younger. So I was excited to see what this was. And apparently Disney are having issues with the original creators gone. There wasn't much. The showrunner from the original one came back, and now he's sort of left the project. And I think they sort of said it was creative issues, and now obviously Hilary Duff's brought to light that they wanted something and Disney doesn't. And it just sort of worries me, because I sort of think that, yes, Disney Plus is great and I'm excited to have a streaming service, but you can't keep it kid-friendly and get the wide demographic they want forever. You need to choose one or the other. Netflix has a lot of kid functions and parental controls, and I feel like Disney Plus really needs to get up to date with those to be able to have that slightly more adult content on there. And really, you know what I mean? It's not going to be Lizzie McGuire does porn. Like, it's not. They're not going to go that. It's not going to be that highbrow. I think it's more just going to be that she's an adult now and has adult relationships and drama hits. She might be getting a divorce or whatever they were going to do. I imagine it was going to be that kind of kooky style, but her as an adult.
I would imagine it'd be kind of like a more PG-13 version of like Sex in the City.
Exactly. Exactly. And what she's doing with her career, and they used to have the little animated Lizzie McGuire, and you could do that as well, but now she's a bit older and the voice sounds a bit different, and they got the whole original cast back, so that was really good news. So I was just a bit weirded out that they were having so many issues, and I think this leads into the second part, which is the Splash being edited out, which is an odd one if you've seen the news article for it in the 90s film Splash with Tom Hanks. There's a bit right at I think it's at the end. It's been a while since I've seen that movie. She kisses Tom Hanks, runs into the water, and she's got long blonde hair, and you can sort of see her butt for like a tenth of a second, and they edited her hair to be longer to cover her butt.
And it looks awful.
It looks awful.
It looks terrible. And it's just another example of Disney kind of going back and trying to censor these movies and just being really cagey about and protective over their stuff. And I think it's to their detriment.
Yeah, because I don't think anyone was going to complain.
It's too many cooks in the kitchen, and they're all worried about their brand. And I wish that they would just stick to their guns. If they're going to put Splash up there, don't edit it. Yeah. Don't change it.
Don't change it.
So, Miguel, what are you hung up on this week?
Okay, so apparently this week, the Russo brothers, in collaboration with comicbook.com, they did a rewatch party of Avengers Endgame. And they were tweeting throughout it, and they were also answering a couple of questions from fans. And one fan asked, were there any other ideas about the origin of the Soul Stone? And the Russo brothers tweeted back that early on the development talks, they considered making Cap the Soul Stone. But that idea fell away rather quickly. So I thought that was really strange, especially considering that the MCU was always pretty grounded, let's say.
That definitely would have been a very different Avengers movie. All right, so that'll do it for this episode of Movie News Network. If you like the show and want to help us out, make sure you subscribe to this podcast, leave a review, share it with your friends. And so, Alex, where can people keep up with you on the web?
They can keep up with me in two places. On Twitter, at new_Macca, that's MACCA, new_Macca, or on Instagram at newmacca, all one word.
Very cool. And Miguel, where can people keep up with you on the web?
People can follow me on movienewsnet.com, where I'll be posting ranking news and maybe some editorials on stuff that come to mind from time to time.
And again, I'm David Wall. You can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd at Davis_Wally. I'm also a video editor, stop motion animator. You can check out my work on those sites. Also, I co-host another podcast called the No Guff Podcast, where my wife and I take turns introducing movies to one another, so feel free to check that out as well. If you liked this podcast, try out the Resistance Broadcast. It's a show by our sister site, Star Wars News Net, that goes deep into discussion about a galaxy far, far away. And as always, for more up-to-date news stories, be sure to regularly check out movienewsnet.com.